Welcome into Hot Reads. It's time to talk Super Bowl with Hall of Fame quarterback Troy Aikman. I'm Tom Vandervoort. And Troy, you've been in 3 of these things. You won 3 of them. And I wonder if you could look back for us a little bit at the 3 victories you got in the Super Bowl and tell us what the keys to each of those wins were. And were there any commonalities between the 3 wins, or were they all pretty different?
Well, they were similar. I would say that for those 3 teams that I was a part of, like these 2 teams this week, and like every team really that plays in the Super Bowl, we were a confident team because you can't get to the Super Bowl, obviously, unless you've played good football and you've won some games going in. And so our teams were very confident. Most importantly, we were well prepared. I thought that Jimmy Johnson did a great job of preparing us, as did Barry Switzer in the last Super Bowl that we won. And then outside of that, we didn't beat ourselves. And I think in a lot of ways that's the real key, and I think that's probably the common denominator amongst all teams that ultimately go on and win Super Bowls is, they've done a nice job of playing good football in a very difficult environment, to be quite honest with you, because as I've said before, as much as you want to say that, hey, it's just a football game, it's just like any other game, it's not, and you're reminded of that at every turn. I mean, all week long, each of these teams, starting with Media Day on Tuesday, they've been reminded that this is not like any other game, and there's going to be 2-3 times the audience that they've ever had for any other game they've played in.
Now, it's interesting because obviously your second Super Bowl was a rematch, and this is a rematch of sorts, although there's been a lot of turnover on the Giants and the Patriots. But what would you see going into this game as the key to this particular matchup?
Well, I think that, when it comes down to it, the things that ultimately decide every game are going to be what decides this game. I think if you look at who's able to not beat themselves, protect the football. Looking back at the first game between these 2 teams, the New England Patriots turned the ball over 4 times. Tom Brady was responsible for 3 of those. He had 2 interceptions, and then he also lost a fumble. On the other hand, the Giants just had 2 turnovers themselves, and so that was a big factor in the game. But you often hear coaches talk about, hey, we have to win the turnover battle. That's true, but turnovers happen in the course of trying to win a football game. It's, saying that we have to win the turnover battle is about the equivalent of saying, we have to score more points than them. And so I've never paid a lot of attention to that, but when you look back on it, then yes, typically the team that does not turn the ball over the most is a team that then goes on to win. The bigger the game, the more important, I believe, third downs become. And so who wins the third down battle? Who's able to keep drives going? Who's able to get off the field defensively in those situations? And then because of the offenses that are involved, it's a little bit cliche to say, but who scores touchdowns when they get down into the red zone? I mean, we all see a lot of games to where a team can dominate, but if they get down inside the 20-yard line, inside the 10-yard line, and they're having to settle for field goals, that's a lot of field goals that you have to make in order to really put a team away. I mean, if you think about it, if you kick 4 field goals and you've gotten down there and the other team hasn't done anything, and then that other team goes down and gets a touchdown, they're immediately right back in the game, even though we've seen one team dominate, through much of the game. And so that's going to be a real key. And I think if you look at these 2 teams and how they've been able to win, that's really the way that they've been able to do it.
Interesting. I noticed in 2 of your 3 Super Bowl wins, you were actually behind during the early portion of the game. One time at halftime you were behind. A lot of times we hear about the importance of getting off to a good start. Is that important at all in your mind from your experience, or is that kind of overrated?
Well, I think that it's, every team that I was a part of, every game that I played in, we always talked about, hey, we need to get off to a fast start and kind of set the tone early. And I think that, it's important in a game like this. I think that, because of the nerves and the emotion and the adrenaline and everything that's going on, that the sooner that you can kind of calm yourself down, then the better off you're going to be and the better off your team's going to be. But I will point back to the first Super Bowl that I played in. We got off to a very tough start, as you said, Tom. We got behind, but we were able to settle in, and at least the game didn't get away from us. I think that in years past, getting off to a good start, not falling behind, things of that nature were probably a bigger or took higher priority than they do now. And I say that because if you look at the games today, almost all of these games come down to the fourth quarter. The ebbs and flows of a football game today are far different than what they used to be. If you look at the lead changes that take place throughout a game between good teams, these quarterbacks and these offenses and these coaches and the defenses as well, they're accustomed to the changes and the things that occur during the course of a game in today's game. And so if a team were to fall behind in this ball game, I don't think that they would react or panic nearly as much as what maybe some teams in years past might have.
Very good, Troy. Thank you so much for your time this week, and we'll talk to you next week to wrap the whole thing up.